Uh, Namaskar. Last time we concluded Article 368. Now, again, today I'm going to start another important chapter of Constitution law, that is fundamental duty. Fundamental duty, which has been inserted under Article 51A by 42nd Constitutional Amendment 1976, because the original draft or original constitution had no chapter for fundamental duties. Fundamental duties are fundamental. As all of you know, as and when we discuss the importance of fundamental rights, so we always argue that fundamental rights are fundamental in nature. They are fundamental rights. They are natural rights. They are basic rights. And that's why in our last discussion, we discussed a lot about the importance of fundamental rights, and fundamental rights has been declared as basic structure of the constitution, especially the rights covered under article 14, 15, 16, 19 and 21 of the constitution. Now the question arises, what was the need for adding fundamental duties in our constitution? As I got mentioned, that what's the difference between fundamental rights and fundamental duties? As we discussed, as you know, that both are fundamental in nature, because in any civilized society, it is always expected from the state, from the society, that there has to be the protection of or guarantee for fundamental rights from the government. And that's why our constitution had a provision for part 3rd of the constitution, which are related to fundamental rights. And fundamental rights cannot be dreamt, cannot be anticipated until unless we are not going to perform our duties. Because so many times we have discussed that rights and duties are complementary and supplementary to each other. Although once we talk about the fundamental rights, then all those rights are not absolute in nature. All those are subject to reasonable restrictions. And why all those are not absolute in nature? Because all those are subject to some duties, some restrictions. Because on the name of restrictions, which has been put in our constitution, or all those are subject to restrictions, it is always expected that at one point of time one is going to exercise his fundamental rights, then others are expected to perform their duty, because only he would be able to, or she would be able to, at one point of time, to enjoy his fundamental rights, as and when others are going to perform their duties. And here, the government, the Aden government in 1976, they had made a provision for fundamental duties under Article 51A of the Constitution. Although fundamental duties are like your directive principles, fundamental duties cannot be enforceable, but now it's the courts which are going to make more conscious, or which are going to mandate that we must be conscious about our fundamental duties, because it's the fundamental duties which are the constant reminder to every citizen that while Constitution specially conferred them certain fundamental rights, then Constitution would ask them to perform certain fundamental duties. Although the other countries of the world, few of them had not provision for fundamental duties, but few of them has the provision for fundamental duties. Now, there are 10 duties which has been discussed under the chapter of fundamental duties under Article 51A of the Constitution. And I don't hesitate to, although we are going to discuss what are all of those fundamental duties, but here I don't hesitate to remark that in case all of us are going to perform our fundamental duties, then there will be no question of the infringement of fundamental rights, because it's the fundamental duties which are fundamental in nature, which are always expected from every civilized society, every disciplined society, every democratic society, that the societies will perform their fundamental duties. Once they are so enthusiastic, or once they are so are so greedy, or wants to exercise more and more liberties, more and more rights, basic liberties, rights, then they should not forget that it's their certain fundamental duties also, so that the others could also enjoy the equally to exercise their fundamental rights. So here, the first fundamental duty to abide by constitution and respect its ideal and institutions, the national flag and the national anthem. As so many times we have discussed that it's our fundamental duty to maintain the supremacy of constitution, and how all of us, either it's the government or the organs of the government or citizens, could maintain and could abide by the constitution's ideals, or could respect for constitution ideals or constitutional institutions, when we will be maintaining the supremacy of constitution, we will salute the norms of constitution, we will respect the provisions for constitution. Second, to cherish and follow the noble ideals which inspired our national struggle for freedom. Again, we will have to inculcate noble ideals of patriotism, because the national freedom has not been achieved overnight. It has been achieved by a long struggle, by a long battle fought by freedom fighters. So we will have to recall their sacrifice, and we must and we ought to cherish the noble ideals of our national struggle for freedom. And that's why sometimes all of you know that as and when any kind of war is there, any kind of crisis there, then we always recite and chant the national patriotic songs like मेरा रंग दे बसंती चोला, मेरा रंग दे बसंती चोला. So why all these songs are to be played? So that people could cherish all those ideals which are supposed to maintain the freedom of nation, which are supposed to maintain the nationality of the nation. Third, to uphold and protect the sovereignty, unity, and integrity of India. And again, it's the constitutional duty or fundamental duty of all of us that we must cooperate, we must aid, we must maintain the sovereignty, unity, and integrity of India. And that's why that sometimes one has to face a harsh provision of law also in case someone becomes headache for the peace of the society, for the sovereignty and integrity of the society. That's why it's our fundamental duty that we must protect the sovereignty, unity, and integrity of India, to defend the country and render national services when called to do so. Because always that there is paramount interest of the society, paramount interest of all of us to defend our country, to defend our nation. So all of us must be got prepared ourselves to must be prepared ourselves to defend the country as and when if such call is going to be uh, given or such call is going to be demanded by the nation, to promote harmony and spirit of common brotherhood amongst all the people of India, transcending religious, linguistic, and regional or sectional diversities, to renounce practices derogatory to the dignity of women. As per my perception, that in case if we are going to inculcate the feelings or spirit of common brotherhoodness amongst all, I think there will be a solution for lot of problems. Lot of problems which had been faced by the society and is being faced by the society. Because it's the common brotherhoodness, it's the common solidarity which could solve the many problems. It could solve the problems related to caste, religion, region, language, color, sex, etc. Because once we will be inculcating such kind of feelings that all of us are brother, then there will not be the question of violation of equality, violation of dignity. So, sorry for interruption. So, in case if we are going to inculcate or incorporate the feelings or sentiments of common brotherhoodness, then we can solve the problem of inequality. Either it is because of religion, race, caste, sex, etc. And that's why it becomes our fundamental duty that we must incorporate this most important ideals or most important pious idea in our personality to nurture the fibers of common brotherhoodness, to value and preserve the right heritage of our composite culture. Again, all of us know it very well that we must respect, we must preserve the right heritage of our composite culture. We must preserve the our past cultures. We must, because all these cultures, all these customs, which were supposed to regulate the society in the absence of law, they could not be and they should not be abolished completely from the society. We must respect the culture and heritage of our society, of our nation, to protect and improve the natural environment, including forests, lakes, rivers, wildlife, and to have compassion for living creatures. It is again very, very important fundamental duty that we must protect our environment. We should not waste our natural resources. Should not waste our natural resources unnecessarily. Today, all of you know that we are facing with a great crisis, and if the most of the people are alleging that we did not respect nature, we did not respect natural resources, and that's why we are facing the problems of this corona today. It is because of the natural disaster, because we have got to totally exploited the natural resources. We have never bothered for the protection of environment, never bothered for the pollution of lakes, for the pollution of rivers. We have not bothered about the natural creatures, and that's why now we are paying a heavy cost for that exploitation nature. So it is our fundamental duty that we must protect and improve the natural environment, including forests, lakes, rivers, etc. To develop the scientific temper, humanism, and the spirit of inquiry and reform. It is our duty to teach and preach our generations, our words for developing the scientific temperament. Because in case if we won't inculcate the feeling of developing of scientific temperament, we won't be able to stand before other developed nations. As today also we can say it is the society, or rather entire world, that because of the lack of developing the scientific temperament, or because of the lack of advent of science, we are not able to curb the menace of present problem. So that's why there has to be a feelings, there has to be feeling of or sentiments of development of scientific temperament, and we must inculcate the feelings of humanism. As all of you know very well, that all kind of ism, either it is casteism, regionalism, sexism, or religionism, any kind of ism, are not less than dragon's teeth. These isms are going to eat away the society, silent, vigilant. But in case if you want to nurture the eyebrows of any kind of ism, then kindly inculcate the fibers of humanism. Means that we must take care, we must serve the humanity, so that again we would be able to develop the temperament of common brotherhoodness. We would be able to respect the dignity of each other. So it is again, it's very important fundamental duties to safeguard public property and abjure violence. You know that public property is the property of nation, is the property of society, is the property of ours. So we must try to protect the public property, to provide all kind of safeguards to our public property, because we should not exploit the public property. We should not waste the public property, because that property is the property of entire nation. And we must also avoid all kind of violence, either it is religious violence, communal violence, political violence, any kind of violence, because violence also breach the peace and tranquility of the society. So that's why it is our fundamental duty that we must avoid we must avoid all types of violence, to strive towards excellence in all spheres of individuals and collective activity, so that the nation constantly rises to higher levels of endeavor and achievements. Because in case if we are going to create excellence in all of us, so that means that we are putting efforts, sincere efforts towards excellence in all sphere of individuals and collective. Because in case if all individuals are going to create excellence in his personality, then obviously we will also promote the excellence collectively, and we also promote the excellence in the entire nation. And excellence is the biggest merit of any individual, and it may be the merit of nations, in case if we are going to inculcate the feelings of excellence, or feelings for performing the excellence in all walk of lives. Who is next? Who is parent or guardian to provide opportunities for education to his child, as the case may be, what between the age of 6 and 14 years. You know that again it is another very important fundamental duty. It's the fundamental duty for all parents or guardians, that they must provide the opportunities for giving education to their children, to their wards, because it's the education which can be termed as potent dark for all kind of evils. Either it is social evil, political evil, economical evil, any kind of evil, by the applying the drug of education, we could have remedies for most of the problems, for most of the evils, most of the disease which can be removed from our society, which can be, abolished from our society. Now, in case if we talk about the source, we can say our our preamble by the preamble of Constitution secures to all the citizens. For example, preamble talks about both fundamental rights as well as fundamental duties. So we can say here is the Constitution secure to all citizens liberty of thoughts. It's our fundamental right. Liberty of expression, liberty of belief, faith, and worship. And these all are fundamental rights of the citizens. The rest of the preamble, the rest of the wordings of preamble emphasizes on the fundamental duties. For example, justice. Justice means social justice, economic justice, political justice. And I think in case if all of us are going to perform all these fundamental duties which has been laid down under 51A, Article 51A of Constitution, we would be able to dispense social justice, economic justice, and political justice. And moreover, the fundamental rights guaranteed by Constitution, as all of you know, I have got mentioned it again earlier, that although we talk about the fundamental rights in our Constitution, but all those are not absolute rights, because here the state is empowered to impose reasonable restrictions and curtail these rights in the interest of society. And what is that interest of society? Why your fundamental rights are going to be curtailed in the interest of society? Interest of society is nothing. It is in the interest of fundamental duties. And that's why sometimes restrictions may sometimes amount to prohibition also. Means that sometimes nowadays we could say that your rights have been restricted. Why? Because of the importance of fundamental duties. Because the nation is facing a big crisis. So it's our duty to cooperate, to coordinate to the government so that the government could come out from this natural disaster. Now, as I have would mention that it's the none of the constitution of Western countries, especially specifically provide the duties and obligation of the citizens. Among the democratic constitution of the world, and we find mention of certain duties of citizen in Japanese constitution. In Britain, Canada, Australia, the rights and duties of citizens are governed largely by common law and judicial decisions. The French constitution makes only a passing reference to duties of the citizen. The citizens of it does not mean that people of these countries behave in an irresponsible manner. Not at all. In all these countries, the citizens are imbued. Citizens are inspired, inspired with high sense of patriotism as a result of education, as a result of their good training in the elementary duties and obligations of citizenship. And it's the socialistic countries, or we could say it's the constitution of socialistic countries. However, lay greater emphasis on the citizen duties. For example, it's the Article 32 of Yugoslavia Constitution lays down that the freedom and rights shall be achieved in solidarity, solidarity among the people by the fulfillment of their duties towards each other. Means that its rights and duties, freedom and rights could be traced in solidarity, and how the solidarity could be created in the society. It can be created by performing the fundamental duties or duties. And here, in case if we talk about the enforcement of duties, as all of you know, that fundamental rights are enforceable, enforceable by courts. What about the fundamental duties in regards of enforcement of duties? So the duties incorporated in Constitution by 42nd Constitutional Amendment are statutory duties and shall be enforceable by law. Parliament by law will provide the penalties to be imposed for failure to fulfill those duties and obligations. So the success of this provision would, however, depend upon the manner in which and the person engaged whom these duties would be enforced. For the proper enforcement of duties, it is necessary that it should be known to all. So, first of all, the society will have to make it aware. So, that's why this should be done by systematic and intensive education of the people, that is by publicity or by making a put of syllabi and curriculum of education. So the law minister has himself uh, suggested in this manner that most of the people of this country are illiterate and not politically mature, not politically conscious of what they owe to society and what they owe to nation or what they owe to country. So if the homes, universities, officers and their place of work should all be made center for imparting in the performance of their obligation, imparting or the the importance of the performance of fundamental duties, and for the purpose of enforcing of fundamental duties, we have certain case law also, which has been filed time to time in our courts, including Supreme Courts. And all of you know that one important case we have got discussed earlier also, that is the case of Honorable Justice Rangachari, which was related to 51A, and we have got discussed it in our earlier discussion. Another case is which can be cited here, sorry, yeah, one case which we have got discussed, it was not it was not the name of Rangachari, sorry, uh, it was the Honorable Sri Ranganath Mishra versus Union of India, 2003. We have got discussed this case earlier, and the other case which could be cited for the purpose of un- unforeseeability, unforeseeability of our fundamental duties. The one case, that is the Sham Narayan Choksi versus Union of India. Sham Narayan Choksi versus Union of India. It was the case of 2018, where one PIL was filed in Supreme Court, and it was asked that one is compelled to show respect whenever the national anthem is played or national anthem is sung. So it is the clan vital of the nation and fundamental grammar belonging to a nation state. So because national anthem is the fundamental grammar belonging to a nation state. So the prescription of the place or occasion has to be made by the executive, keeping keeping in view the concept of fundamental duties provided under the Constitution and law. Playing of national anthem in the cinemas hall on the screen may not be made mandatory until the final decision is taken by the committee appointed by the central government and thereafter by the central government itself. The court issued the necessary directions with the exemption granted to disabled to remain in force till the final decision of the competent authority with regard to each occasion whenever the national anthem is played or sung. Means that the direction from the Supreme Court that we must participate in singing of national anthem, as this case of Honorable Rangnath Mishra also related to the importance of participation in singing a national anthem, and in that case we discussed that even petitioner Honorable Justice Rangnath Mishra requested the courts to reconsider the Bijoy case, in which the Supreme Court had held that the students of Christian community, when they have not participated in the singing of national anthem, they had stood respectfully, and Supreme Court held that they had not violated any kind of they had not violated and disrespected the national anthem. And Justice Mishra, Honorable Justice Rangnath Mishra, had asked the court to reconsider about the decision on Bijoy case. Another case which was decided by the Supreme Court in 1983, it was MC Mehta versus Union of India. Here the Supreme Court has held that under Article 51A, Clause G, it's the duty of the central government to introduce compulsory teaching of lessons at least for 1 hour in a week on the protection and improvement of natural environment in all the educational institutions of our country. It directed the central government to get textbooks written on the subject and distribute them to the educational institutions free. Distribute them to the educational institution free of cost in order to arouse amongst the people the consciousness of cleanliness of environment It suggested the desirability of organizing, keep the city clean weekly, keep the town clean, keep the village clean weekly in every city, and keep the clean town and village throughout India, and not weekly, at least once in a year. So it is all because of the fundamental duties, as we discussed, that it is our fundamental duty to protect our environment. Another interpretation of fundamental duties, what we discussed related to development of excellence in every individuals. So here it was the case an aid to interpretation of constitutional provisions which was related to fundamental duties. Here in this case, AIM Students Union versus AIM, All India Medical Sciences. Here the Supreme Court talking about the importance of fundamental duties inside under Article 51A, while striking down the institutions, while striking down the institutional reservation of 33% of aims coupled with 50% reservation discipline wise as violation of Article 14 of the Constitution, and the Supreme Court said that they are equally important like fundamental rights. Means that fundamental duties are equally important like fundamental rights, though fundamental duties are not made enforceable like fundamental rights, but it cannot overlook as duties. In part 4th of the in part 4th A of the Constitution, as I have got discussed that in part 4th A is prefixed by the same word fundamental, as right is prefixed with word fundamental, duty is also prefixed word fundamental duties, so which are prefixed by fundamental duties of constitution prefixed by the founding fathers of the constitution to right under part 3rd of the constitution. So every citizen of India is fundamentally obliged to develop the scientific temper and humanism, because uh, it has been laid down in fundamental duties that it's the fundamental duty of all of us to develop the scientific temper and humanism. So Article 51A does not cast any fundamental duty on the state. So the facts remain that the duty of every citizen is the collective duty of the state. And that's why any reservation, apart being substantive on the constitutional unveil, must also be reasonably reasonably to be permissible. assessing the reasonability, one of the factors to be taken into consideration would be whether the character and quantum of reservation could stall or accelerate in achieving the ultimate goal of excellence, enabling nation constantly rising to higher level. So in the globalization where nation as enabling whole has to compete with other nations of the world as to survive, excellence cannot be given go by and certainty not compromised in entirety. So fundamental duties, though not enforceable by a writ of court, yet provide a valuable guide and aid to interpretation of constitutional and legal issues. So, in case of any doubt or choice of people's wish as manifested through 51A can serve as a guide not only for resolving the issues but also for constructing or molding the relief to the given by the courts. So the constitutional enactments of fundamental duties, if it has to be have any meaning, must be used by courts as a tool to take even a taboo on state action drifting away from constitutional values the judges declared. Another uh, important decisions, that is State of Gujarat versus Mirzapur Moti Qureshi Kassab Zamat. Here the petitioner challenged the constitutional validity of Bombay Animal Preservation of Gujarat Amendment Act 1994, by which the state had prohibited the slaughter of cows and its progeny on the ground that it was violative of their right to carry on business under Article 19, Clause 1, Clause G of the Constitution. The Supreme Court held that the ban imposed by the Act is reasonable restriction on their business and in the interests of nation of general public within the meaning of Clause 6 of Article 19 of the Constitution, and restrictions imposed for promoting the objectives of directive principles in Article 48 and Article 51A is a reasonable restriction on the fundamental right of the petitioner to carry out on business and therefore valid. Means that it is in the light of the importance of directive principles and Article 51A, there was a provision of slaughter of cows and progeny in the state. And Supreme Court asked that there is no violation of Article 19, Clause 1, Clause G, because there are other profession also they could join, and in case if they want to remain as a slaughter or they want to uh, remain slaughter and don't want to shift it other than slaughter profession, then they could slaughter other animals other than cows and progeny, because because you know that all those are very important for the agricultural profession also, and that's why the Supreme Court held that it was reasonable. It was under reasonable restriction under Article 19, Clause 6, in the interest of general public. Another case, this other case was the year of 2006. Another case, Government of India versus George Philip. It was the case of 2007. Here, it was the respondent who had challenged of his compulsory retirement from service. Actually, he was granted a leave by the department to pursue advanced study and advanced research training. He was granted leaves for 2 years. He overstayed in a foreign country in spite of uh, repeated reminders. And he was asked again and again to come and join your duty. And you know that, but after expiring of his leave, one committee was constituted against him, and he was charged for overstaying in foreign country without leave, and it was approved. He was compulsorily retired from the service. Tribunal and High Court granted him remedy of joining his service without back wages. The Supreme Court set aside the order of High Court, and the Supreme Court held that Article 51A imposed a duty on a citizen to strive towards excellence in all spheres and cannot be achieved unless employee maintain the discipline and cannot maintain a devotion to his duty. So the courts should not pass orders which, instead of achieving underlying spirit and objects of Part 4A of Constitution, has tendency to negate or destroy the same. So overstay of leave and absence from duty by government employee and granting him a 6 months time to join amount to not only giving him premium to indiscipline, but wholly subversive of work cultures in any organization. So now the courts are going to become more active, more vibrant for the purpose of enforcement of fundamental duties. So, what I comment that it should not the court, it becomes our, because it will be sheer wastage of time of the courts for the enforceability fundamental duties, it becomes our again paramount and fundamental duties to promote, to develop, and to perform all fundamental duties which has been laid down under Article 51A of the Constitution. Thank you for today. Thank you.